president rebukes internal interference by foreign envoys. Guyana described as a shining star with regards to disaster risk management, and the head of state welcomes Suriname's trade mission to Guyana. We'll have the details of these and other presidential activities in this week's edition of the Diary for the period January 10 to January 16, 2015. I'm Paul McAdam. President Ramatar says his government has always followed the letter and spirit of the Guyanese constitution as he rebukes interference in the nation's internal affairs by foreign envoys. President Donald Ramatar has expressed his surprise and disappointment at statements made recently by the outgoing United Kingdom High Commissioner Andrew Eyre with regards to the prorogation of Parliament. He noted that Guyana values its relationship with the United Kingdom and has had good cooperation in several fields.
He ought to know that prorogation is within our constitution, and it also is part of the whole practice of parliamentary democracy, which is derived from the United Kingdom and Britain. I didn't see the High Commissioner making any statement, or the United Kingdom government making any statement when Canada prorogued their parliament on more than one occasion. So it seems as if there's one standard for some countries and another standard for some countries as far as the High Commissioner is concerned. It is very, very unfortunate that he has taken the position to mislead people, because as you know, that the Commonwealth has Guyana is not before the Commonwealth for anything. Whatever we have done is being very legal. We have done everything legal and constitutional, and therefore the High Commissioner was totally out of place with the comments that he's made.
The head of state noted that the regional grouping of member states, CARICOM, has signaled its support for government's stance on the issue.
I'm very happy that CARICOM has come out too, recognizing that this is an interference in the internal affairs of countries and violating one of the principles of international relations. So I would say that the High Commissioner obviously has overstepped his mark in this regard, and it's very, very unfortunate since we've had such good relationship with the United Kingdom over the years.
President Ramatar and the First Lady Diyalashmi Ramatar visit the revered ashram and former home of the Mahatma Gandhi during his state visit to India. The ashram and museum in Ahmedabad, celebrating the life and achievements of the late Mahatma Gandhi, where several artifacts and historical documents from the period covering the father of the Indian independence movement resided, was visited by President Ramatar and the First Lady Diyalashmi Ramatar during the recent state visit to India. The Indian freedom fighter lived at the ashram after he returned to the country from South Africa.
Being there itself was an experience to see some of the things that he worked on his spinning wheel, where he spun his own cloth, and where he made his decisions, where he took decisions as far as the struggle against colonialism and was concerned. So I think it was a great experience just being there and having a look at many of the archival material that they're now collecting. They're making the place into a real place of study where people can go and study. I think something that Gandhi would have been pleased with, that this memorial that is there now to him is something that is alive, where people can go and look at his works, the works of the period, etc., to develop India, because his campaign was trying to push the British to quit India. And now that they've quit India, the task now is different, to build India, to develop India, to clean India, to put it their own way as well.
It was from this base that Gandhi led the Dandi March, also known as the Salt March, on the 12th of March in 1930. It was in protest at the British salt law, which increased taxes on Indian salt in an effort to promote sales of British salt in that country. In recognition of the significant influence that this march had on the Indian independence movement, the Indian government established the ashram as a national monument.
It's an inspiration to the Indian people, where the #1 leader of the anti-colonial struggle spent a lot of his time working out strategies and tactics, meeting people, and also giving leadership to the masses in the struggle against colonialism.
Whilst at the ashram, Gandhi formed a tertiary school that focused on manual labor, agriculture and literacy in order to advance his efforts for the nation's self-sufficiency. Although this was won on the 15th of August in 1947 when India was declared a free nation, Gandhi was assassinated on the 30th of January in 1948. India has offered to assist Guyana's sugar sector. President Ramotar had a first-hand look at the operations of a sugar factory during his recent state visit to India.
It was a really revealing experience. It's a very, very efficient factory. It is owned by co-op. It is a co-op factory owned by farmers and the workers in the factory. It is, I was told that over the last 6 months they had about half an hour downtime. It is using all the tools of ICT and everything else to improve its efficiency. They produce all the electricity they need. They sell excess bagasse to other industries in Gujarat, including paper company to make paper, to make cardboard. They have a lot of byproducts, of course alcohol, as you know. They also have various types of sugar. So I think it's something that we can learn about, and we can also look at the whole issue of the ownership of the factory, how it is done and so forth.
He explained that he also met several Indian experts and spoke to them about offering their expertise to Guyana.
Also, I've had several discussions with other big Indian sugar companies and also companies that carry out research and other type of activities. And they are very, very interested in Guyana, and we expect a delegation from them, or more than one delegation from them will be coming soon to look at possibilities of how they can work together with Gaisuco and what other investments could be made in our country, particularly as far as sugar is concerned.
The President welcomed the high-level Surinamese trade mission to Guyana, describing it as an important step for business as well as regional integration. President Ramotar formally welcomed the Surinamese trade delegation to Guyana at a cocktail reception and mini-exhibition hosted at the Princess Hotel on January 16.
It's a very important development for both of our countries. We are part of CARICOM, and I know that there are many people within the Caribbean region who sometimes express frustration at the pace at which the integration is going. And I have often said to people that integration is not just the job of the government or governments in the region, but we will achieve greater integration when we have more links within our economies. And that is going to help us greatly to promote integration. And this is also particularly important for our two countries because we are neighbors. Not only do we belong to CARICOM and we are in the same region, but we are neighbors. And the development of our countries is extremely important to give a higher quality of life to our people. And we can use the synergies of the private sector in both our countries to create partnerships, create new links and expand where we have probably are limited in some ways to expand our businesses and make them much bigger and much stronger in that regard.
It is noting that addressing CARICOM's annual bill of an estimated several billion US dollars for food imports was one area that could see mutual cooperation.
When we were in Cuba recently with the CARICOM Cuba meeting, I made that point that this is an important area for cooperation. $4 billion US dollars is not small money. And I mentioned that if you add Cuba, it will be about $5 billion. And President Raul Castro said, no, put two, it's $6 billion in food that we import in this region. And that shows us the great scope that we have in one area alone, where cooperation in our two countries and pooling the resources that we have, that a big impact we can make on the region as a whole.
A suggestion was also made by the President for some of the trade regimes to be unified.
That way we can cut down on smuggling and we can maximize the benefits for the people of our country, particularly as it relates to our wasting resources or wasting assets, things like gold that don't grow back and many other mineral resources that you don't reproduce them easily, and at least it will take thousands, if not millions of years for them to reproduce themselves. And here we can look at many of our regimes to unify them so that we can maximize the benefits for the people of our country, because governments are still expected to provide the fundamental infrastructure, education, health, roads, and other facilities. And we don't get those things, we have to get those things from somewhere. And we have to think about how we can maximize, particularly, as I said, our wasting assets, that we have to do these things. So this is a big step forward, something that I welcome, something that the government, as a government, we welcome this and hope that it will grow from strength to strength and spread across the region, and we will have realized the dreams of the people of the region to have one integrated and one market.
The three-day trade mission featured presentations by stakeholders such as the Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, the Private Sector Commission, Surinamese Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Go Invest Guyana, Suriname's Business Forum, and custom officials of both countries. Business-to-business meetings with tourism, manufacturing, agriculture, construction, food and beverage, entrepreneurs, and others were also conducted, along with field visits to several local business operations. You're watching The Diary, where we have been recapping the highlights of the country's president's weekly activities. More after the break. The Amalia Fault Hydropower project is essential for a vibrant manufacturing sector. Under the flagship of the LCDS, Norway has transferred earnings from its partnership with Guyana, amounting to some $80 million to the Inter-American Development Bank to fund a part of Guyana's equity share in the project. High amongst the priorities will be ensuring the achievement of more affordable and more reliable energy. Government will deliver the Amalia Fault Hydropower project along with all of its attendant benefits. It is expected that there will be an achievement of financial closure and commencement of the construction of this project during 2015. A message from the Government Information Agency. The Community Development Initiative Plan, CDP, under the Amerindian Development Fund, is a project introduced by the PPPC administration to secure livelihood for the Amerindian villages and hinterland communities. Already 25 communities have received $125 million to embark on agriculture, mining and tourism projects, among several others. Additionally, 161 communities are to benefit in the second phase, which will see $1.3 billion being disbursed. A message from the Government Information Agency.
To ease traffic congestion along the East Bank Highway, which is a critical thoroughfare for accessing the city, plans are afoot to construct a new bypass linkage from Eccles to Diamond. Additionally, the feasibility study for the East Coast East Bank Bypass Road has been completed, and government will be examining how to advance this huge project.
Ghana's crime fighting capacity has been boosted tremendously. A state-of-the-art forensic laboratory, the formation of the country's first ever special weapons and tactical SWAT unit, and institutional strengthening are some aspects of the sector's reforms. Capacity building has played an important role as ranks have received training both locally and overseas to effectively deal with various aspects of crime solving. A message from the Government Information Agency.
Pensioners will enjoy a 50% increase in assistance, bringing it to $30,000 per annum for pensioners who are customers of the Guyana Power and Light Company Incorporated. Further, old age pension is to be increased by 5% with effect from May 1, 2014 to $13,125 monthly, targeting the 42,500 senior citizens.
Government remains committed to the fight against all forms of terrorism.
All persons have a duty to fight against terrorism. This sentiment was expressed by the President when he was asked about it during his recent state visit to India.
All the people who are in support of democracy and for social progress have a duty to fight terrorism wherever it exists, because nothing in my mind, nothing worthy could be achieved by that method of struggle. While sometimes we sympathize with the cause that people are fighting for, the forms of struggle is also important, and Gandhiji showed how important that is to the world.
India has increased its capacity to fight terrorism, particularly since a series of 12 coordinated shootings and bombing attacks lasting some 4 days across Mumbai were carried out by the Pakistani members of the Lashkar-e-Taiba left. The attacks, which drew widespread global condemnation, began on Wednesday, the 26th of November in 2008 and lasted until Saturday, the 29th, resulting in the deaths of 164 people and wounding at least 308.
Government representatives have signaled their sympathy for those killed during the recent French terror attacks.
Acting President Prime Minister Samuel Hines, accompanied by the Acting Foreign Minister Robeson Ben, on government's behalf, signed a book of condolence at the French consulate in memory of those killed in the recent deadly shooting attack on the Charlie Hebdo satirical newspaper. The incident that killed 12 persons on January 7 was described as France's deadliest terror attack in half a century. Among the 12 killed, 8 were journalists. The dead included 4 of the country's celebrated cartoonists. The assault has crystallized what some see as a culture clash between religious extremism and the West's devotion to free expression. The terror alert for the Ile-de-France region, which includes Paris, the capital, has since been raised to its highest level, and several other terrorist attacks have reportedly been thwarted as security officials in Europe grow weary of the returning citizens who have left to go and fight in Syria and Iraq. The Guyanese government has consistently condemned terrorism and continues to call for peaceful dialogue to resolve issues. Ghana's role in the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency and the Comprehensive Caribbean Disaster Management Strategy was a topic of discussion when President Donald Ramotar met with the agency's Executive Director, Ronald Jackson, at the presidential complex.
New 10-year strategy that is trying to achieve disaster risk resilience for the region. And so I shared that with him. I also shared with the President the main priorities of CDEMA, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, for the next 3 years, and how those priorities are likely to support the Guyana, people of Guyana and their program for disaster risk management. We talked a little bit as well about the governance of the agency, CDEMA, given that it is an instrument of the 18 member states, Guyana being, of course, a shareholder in that. So we had a discussion around the governance of CDEMA, the plans going forward. And then we had discussions around some of the global issues that are coming up on the agenda related to the post-2015 development agenda, the Hyogo Framework of Action, which is a global blueprint for disaster risk management.
Jackson also met with officials of the Ghana Civil Defense Commission.
The CDC is one of our bright performers over the last, I would say, 3 years. They've been doing quite a bit of work. Credit to the leadership here, I think, in looking at the context in a very strategic way, and they've been making the various strides on both sides of the coin, looking at the prevention side and setting the fundamental groundwork to achieve that, but also strengthening the response coordination. Because one of the things we have to accept within the region, especially in the era of climate variability and climate change, is that the region is still going to have to be responding to the adverse effects of disaster events, not just here in Guyana, but supporting the regional response. CDEMA draws on capacity from across the 18 member states to respond to the needs of its members. And so if the CDC is building capacity, then that capacity is going towards supporting a regional regional response. And that is how we support the CDC and support the other members of our region.
The CARICOM official has held his post for the last 2 years, but was unable to meet with the Guyanese head of state due to commitments on both sides.
I've been in Guyana a couple of times, but unfortunately the president had other engagements. So it's a process. You know, when you come in, you always seek to meet with the hierarchy, and today I was fortunate that he was in office and able to meet with me. It was a very good meeting, I will say. I think he embraces and understands the key issues, and Guyana has long been a main supporter of SEDIMA, and I get the sense that that is likely to continue.
More of the diary after this break.
The Amalia Falls hydropower project is essential for a vibrant manufacturing sector. Under the flagship of the LCDS, Norway has transferred earnings from its partnership with Guyana, amounting to some $80 million to the Inter-American Development Bank to fund a part of Guyana's equity share in the project. High amongst the priorities will be ensuring the achievement of more affordable and more reliable energy. Government will deliver the Amalia Falls hydropower project along with all of its attendant benefits. It is expected that there will be an achievement of financial closure and commencement of the construction of this project during 2015. A message from the Government Information Agency. The Community Development Initiative Plan, CDP, under the Amerindian Development Fund is a project introduced by the PPPC administration to secure livelihood for the Amerindian villages and hinterland communities. Already 25 communities have received $125 million to embark on agriculture, mining and tourism projects, among several others. Additionally, 161 communities are to benefit in the second phase, which will see $1.3 billion being disbursed. A message from the Government Information Agency.
To ease traffic congestion along the East Bank Highway, which is a critical thoroughfare for accessing the city, plans are afoot to construct a new bypass linkage from Eccles to Diamond. Additionally, the feasibility study for the East Coast East Bank Bypass Road has been completed, and government will be examining how to advance this huge project.
Ghana's crime fighting capacity has been boosted tremendously. A state-of-the-art forensic laboratory, the formation of the country's first ever special weapons and tactical SWAT unit, and institutional strengthening are some aspects of the sector's reforms. Capacity building has played an important role as ranks have received training both locally and overseas to effectively deal with various aspects of crime solving. A message from the Government Information Agency.
Pensioners will enjoy a 50% increase in assistance, bringing it to $30,000 per annum for pensioners who are customers of the Guyana Power and Light Company Incorporated. Further, old age pension is to be increased by 5% with effect from May 1, 2014 to $13,125 monthly, targeting the 42,500 senior citizens.
This was Guyana just over 2 decades ago. Bankrupt, its people despondent, collapsing social and physical infrastructure, second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, no housing program, production at its lowest level, 94% of every dollar serviced external debt. From the dawn of a new era, enter a new Guyana. This is our Guyana now, blooming.
That's all in this week's diary for the period January 10 to January 16, 2015. Before we go, these were some of the highlights. President rebukes internal interference by foreign envoys. Guyana described as a shining star with regards to disaster risk management, and the head of state welcomes Suriname's trade mission to Guyana. Do join us again for the next program when we will bring you more of the President's activities. I'm Paul McAdam, thanking you for watching. For more information, contact us via email or visit our website.